My tagline has always been music with a mission. And I felt like before I really started getting into music, I felt like, God wanted me to build my mission first. And so my mission is so much connected to my story. I grew up fatherless, grew up impoverished, didn't have a lot. And so for me, my mission is my music. It's my life.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Curtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio, and Aisha Woods, Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and musician. Together, they talk with artists and industry insiders to discover our connection between music and faith. You can connect with us on Facebook or Twitter at Between Grooves. Now, here's James and Aisha.
Well, welcome, friends. How's everybody doing today? We are on episode 279, Between the Grooves.
279.
And James.
We are
How
here.
How you feeling, my brother?
I'm feeling great. I have really been looking forward to this conversation that we have today. Yeah, this is well, I'll be honest. We've had a standing invitation since day one for Justin Bieber to join us on the show. And he's never responded. He's never said, yeah. He's never dropped by, surprised us and said, yeah, hey, guys, I just thought I'd, swing by and have a chat.
Sure.
But the conversation we're having today is better than that anyways.
That's awesome.
And there is a little bit of a tie-in with Justin Bieber. The guy we're chatting with today was Justin Bieber's former road pastor. He was on the road with Justin just as his career was launching, and but this guy's phenomenal. And
yes, he is.
This conversation, you cannot shut us down. You cannot turn it off. If you're going to pause because you're driving, listen to the rest. You want to listen to this entire episode because this is powerful stuff.
It's meaty.
Brandon Love is on Between the Grooves.
Brandon. Good morning.
Hey, I'm here. Just trying to see should I be seeing myself right now? Or
No. This is just audio.
Okay.
So let's talk about your career. Let's talk about you. I know that, I guess, one of the things that you're known for, I suppose, and I don't want to get into it too much, but we've always had an open invitation for Justin Bieber to join us on the show, and he's never taken us up on it. But you've had the opportunity to hang out with him quite a bit in the past.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's my little bro.
How did that materialize? How did that happen?
Oh, man, it's such a crazy story. But I know his mother, Patty Millette. We met here in Atlanta back in 2009. And she had an interesting story being from Canada. And I had recently moved from Texas here to Atlanta. And we were at a church. And just through a set of divine circumstances, she told me about her and her son just moving and him going into the industry and how she needed a mentor for his son. And I told her about how I just came from Texas to Atlanta and felt like God was calling me to help mentor, young people. And she was like, well, how would you like to be a mentor for my son? Met him a few days later. We kicked it off. And then 6 months later, he blew up.
He did, didn't he?
Just never know.
And you were on the road with him for a bit too, weren't you?
Yeah, I was like a spiritual advisor / travel pastor for him, for sure.
I would love to be on the road with, a big artist, not in a spiritual capacity, more just to watch and learn and be that fly on the wall,
Yeah, it was a great experience because I had recently just graduated college and I was playing basketball, ever since I was a young boy and graduated college. And I had just had this radical experience with God where I had a 7-year illness. And I was sick for, a very, very long time. And I experienced a miraculous healing that literally changed everything about my life, changed everything about the trajectory of what I felt like I was supposed to do in my life. And I felt like music was supposed to be a big part of that. But because I had been playing basketball for the majority of my life, I didn't really know how to navigate that space. And me coming to Atlanta was to discover that. And so the fact that, I came here to discover my purpose and find out how to utilize music as a part of that. And then I met Justin, and then he got famous. And it was like overnight, I got to experience that level of success and be exposed, as you said, like be a fly on the wall, if you will. And it was just really cool to see, one, just the power of music and the influence that music has. And so for me to just watch that and to see like, wow, like I know that this is something that I want to do one day. I think what really struck me was the way that I saw how it could influence a generation, especially towards something positive.
Do you still play basketball?
Oh, of course, I still play. I'm a hooper, man. I grew up in outside of Baltimore area, and it was either you sold drugs or you played basketball, and I did both before I had a radical encounter with God. But yeah, basketball has always been a part of my story for sure. You're
involved still with the younger generation, with youth and whatnot. Is sports part of that? Like, is the basketball part of it, or is it more of a just having this relationship, almost like a I wouldn't say Boy Scouts or the father figure or whatever else. Is it more like neighborhood kids?
Well, yeah, I have a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3 called Go Getters for God. And the premise of it is that we use the creative arts, and we also use sports as a vehicle to mentor kids and do outreach. And we have an incubator program where we actually take them through a whole cohort of development classes, whether that's spiritual development, leadership, business, family, like all the life skills. And then we basically take them through a program where they help to become who they're called to be. And some of them that have businesses, some of them have, dreams of doing music. And so all different types of kids, and we walk them through that process. And so sports is a huge aspect of, what we tend to draw. And so we have people that have tried out for the NFL, and we have kids that are in the music industry as well. And so, yeah, our organization is kind of like, if you would say big brother, little brother program, but we have mentors that mentor these young individuals and, just kind of help them walk in their God-given purpose.
How long is the program, Brandon?
It varies. We have people that come in and come out, and then we have a 1.5 year development program.
Okay.
We have a building here in Atlanta, Georgia called the Oasis, where actually people come and their families come with them and they live in our community. And so they get an opportunity to go through the program, but then we also do outreach in the city here in Atlanta. We may feed the homeless. We do a lot of community outreach programs. And so, yeah, a lot of the people that are going through that program now are actually living in community with us.
And is this your job? Like, this is what you do for full-time employment, or is the music what you're gearing towards or moving towards?
Yeah, it's kind of in tandem. So, my tagline has always been music with a mission. And I felt like before I really started getting into music, I felt like, God wanted me to build my mission first. And so my mission is so much connected to my story. I grew up fatherless, grew up impoverished, didn't have a lot. And so for me, my mission is my music. It's my life. And so I run this nonprofit organization and I have a team of people that work with me. And then out of that, we create music. Music is at the center of a lot of what we do here and a lot of ways that we actually teach. We see it as like a creative development resource. And so the song that I just released, Freedom, was based on a mission trip that I went to Africa. And out of my experience there, I wrote that song. So that's kind of how it all kind of came together.
Where'd you go? I
went to Malawi. It's my first time to Africa. Okay. Yeah, I went to Malawi.
Nice.
Can you tell us about your experience there? Obviously, it's in probably in the song Freedom as well, but can you kind of in your words explain, how that impacted you?
Yeah, it was one of the most miraculous, amazing trips of my life. Obviously, first time going to Africa, being an African American was hugely impactful. But one of the things that happened when I was there was I got asked to go to a prison to speak to some women that were in prison. And this prison was like one of the worst, not just prisons I've ever been to, but just the worst places I've ever been to in terms of the environment was just extremely hostile. It was dirt floors. It was I mean, I don't even have words to describe how hostile an environment it was in, but these women were inside of this little chapel and they had their babies with them. And I found out that these babies were born in prison, and, some of the babies were, 4 or 5 years old. So some of them had been in prison since they were born.
Wow.
And they were inside of this prison, and, we come over as like American missionaries to share and encourage. And we gave out, toiletries and different, necessities that they needed. And we just came to give them hope. And so I share my story a little bit, and then I rap for them a little bit, and then they start singing. And as they're singing, I grew up in church, and, I've heard, gospel songs all the time, and I'm around that all the time as well. But it was the fact that they were singing in that level of poverty, destitution, like that was just like, wow, like, for them to have that type of joy in that situation, it really compelled me. And to ask, I started talking to the warden, and I'm like, what are they singing? Like, and he says, they're singing, "I have been set free in your name, Father." When they said that, it hit me because, I know the power of the gospel. It saved my life. And I know that, I wouldn't even be here if it had not been for the gospel. As I was telling you guys earlier, I had a sickness that I got miraculously healed from. But being an American, that's one thing, and going through challenges, but being an African and going through challenges look totally different. And the fact that they were in prison, not singing about they were going to be set free in 6 months or a year, or they were going to get out. They were singing, "I'm already free."
Yeah.
In your name, Father. And it struck me so hard. And in that moment, I just felt like God spoke to me and said, "I want you to help tell their stories." And so I took my phone and I was able to get a sample of their recording singing. And while I was in Africa, I wrote the song. And I was there with an organization called the Louis Palau Association, which they do festivals all over the world. And they asked me, could I come perform on the last day of the festival? It was about 50,000 people there. And I felt like I was supposed to literally release the song that we had just written 24 hours ago. And that song while we were in Malawi. And the best thing I can say is that it felt like it was like healing for the people there. Many of the people that were there at that festival, they had people that were in that prison. And so the fact that we had them sampled on the song, singing in the background, "I have been set free." And they were in jail, but the people at the festival were out of jail. But the freedom that these women were singing about was more powerful than the people that were actually physically free. And it touched the people, it impacted the people, and there's just been a spiral of events that have happened. So, as you can hear, it was such a miraculous and radical and life-changing trip for me.
Wow.
I just have a question. You were mentioning about the fact that, and this is like kind of hit me, where you're talking about these women that are incarcerated and they're in jail, they're in prison, and they've got their kids with them. They've got young babies, up to the age of 4 or whatever else. What happens to these kids? Because obviously they didn't do anything. They should not be in jail. But I understand that they need to be with their parents or their mom, to get bigger, I guess. But what happens after they're like? Do they get pulled from their mom and get thrown into school or something,
foster care?
What? Yeah, what happens to them?
Yeah, I asked some of the same questions, and now we're working with the ex-president's daughter of Malawi, who is one of the ones that brought us into the organization. And when I saw all of this and I had some of the same questions, I was like, hey, what can we do to help? And I was just trying to find out and understand the situation. And one thing is it's totally different from America, in terms of the foster care system. My mother works as a social worker, and she works in the foster care system in Texas. And, she tells me all the time about how there's so many kids that need help in the foster care system here in America. But, what I've come to gather so far, and I'm still, doing research about how we can, work with them in the prison there in Malawi. What I found out is that for some of those kids, that's the safest place that they could actually be. That there's not necessarily foster care systems there that those kids could go to. They may only have their mother. They might not have some of the resources that we have. We hear about Africa and orphans and the deficit of support that's there. And I think that's just the reality of the situation. Was that, it might have been some of the safest places for these kids to be, which, is such a sad reality. Mm-hmm. And so we're working with an organization there because the same community that we have here in Atlanta, we actually want to build more communities like that in other places. And so we're actually partnering with an individual in Malawi to help build community so that some of these women, when they get out of prison, that they could come and take their families and actually live in these communities and go through some of that holistic care that our community provides, so that they can walk, on that path of redemption. But, sad to say, I don't think they have the resources that we have. And so, these parents are having to make the best decisions they can. And to be honest, man, it's hard to wrap your mind around. I'm still wrapping my mind around it. And this is why we did the song, so that we could actually spread awareness and, kind of make a difference.
Are you still involved with the Luis Palau evangelistic team? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm really close with Kevin Palau. He's been a great support, and they've just been, supportive of what we do.
I had the opportunity to meet Luis Palau before he passed. Well, I shouldn't say before he passed. It was years and years and years and years ago when he was gaining momentum in Latin America. And I'll say this, I've got the highest regard for the Luis Palau team because they do things that perhaps isn't done a whole lot anymore. Like we've heard in the past about the Billy Graham Association, and they still do crusades and stuff. But I think the Luis Palau team go into a lot of places that maybe shouldn't. It sounds like I'm downplaying the Billy Graham Association, but they go into other places,
Fact is fact. Yeah, it's very true.
They're going into other areas where there's needs. And so I appreciate both organizations, but Luis Palau isn't a household name like Billy Graham is I guess what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've, known Kevin a little bit, and, he told me a lot of the stories about his dad, and his dad actually worked for Billy Graham for a while.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know that, but Luis Palau used to be his interpreter when Billy Graham would go to Latin America. And I think that, was a huge part of his testimony, and to see what they do in other countries specifically is amazing. I mean, the way that they go in advance of these major crusades that they do and serve the people and feed them, go into the prisons and just get involved in the community. And also, they're not just going there to, share the gospel with these individuals. They're also partnering with a lot of the local organizations. They're collaborating with the city and the church there. And literally, when I was there in Malawi, you could feel a whole entire city was being impacted by the effect of this organization, along with those who were on the ground that were partnering together. It was amazing. I mean, it was a move of God. Literally, there were people that were taking their babies out of the hospital that had malaria and dropping them off at the festival, and God was healing them on the spot.
I love that.
It was phenomenal. So I was so grateful to be a part of it.
I think one of the important things to note is what you said about the fact that they don't just kind of show up and ta-da, we're here. No, they've been planning for months. They've been on site for months, getting this whole thing together and doing stuff for the community. They're not just showing up and say, hey, preaching the gospel, but they're actually serving.
Even years. Like they actually go in, I think it's 3 years in advance.
Wow.
And they actually won't even start doing an initiative until they can get some of the leaders of that city and that community and the churches there to work together for at least I think, a 2 to 3 year process. So they're building relationships,
awesome.
they're invested.
Right.
And so it's really cool to see how invested and how thoughtful and how intentional they are, because they want to see lasting impact. And so it was really easy for me to be involved in that, because I think the church has done, an amazing job in sharing the gospel, but I believe that there's a greater need for discipleship and what that looks like to help, especially countries like Malawi, impact their infrastructure and help raise up leaders from within that community. And so it's a huge part of what I feel called to do. And I think it's a huge part of why, Kevin Palau feels called to partner with me, and then vice versa.
That's awesome. That's pretty incredible, especially given the fact that, again, going back to how you started, and literally just basketball was your life, and that other life of yours, and then getting sick yourself and understanding that, God healed you, and then getting into the music side of things and everything else. Like, you've come full circle for sure, haven't you?
Full circle. Isn't it amazing, man, how God works?
Yeah.
Right. But absolutely, man, it's, music, sports, even specifically the hip hop genre of music is the most influential genre of music in the world. It's the most worldwide language across the board. I got to see that when I traveled with Justin. And sports is the same thing. And so to be able to see God use that as a tool, and to be able to use that tool specifically as a means to carry a language of a message that has the power to change lives, cities, states, nations, it's amazing. And we're actually seeing that happen. And I feel like we're just beginning. And so, yeah, I am so grateful, man, that God saved me, and that, I get to be an example of many of the things that God has done in my life, that I can encourage another young person to say, if he did it for me, he could do it for you. But also,
sure enough,
we can walk with you together. Like, I didn't have some of the guidance, I didn't have some of the people and some of the support that many young people don't have this day. And so the fact that, God has given us a vision to be able to come alongside these individuals and all over the world, and to try to help provide some natural support, as well as giving them the spiritual support that cannot just impact their lives, but cause them to be influences in society. Like, we've seen that happen. Justin, work with Justins all the time. I meet Justins everywhere I go. He just happened to be a famous person that has influence, but we're seeing that in so many different places, and it's just inspiring us to want to do and be more.
What's inspiring to me, Brandon, is hearing what you're saying and convincing myself that it doesn't seem like you're motivated by record sales at all.
No, his passion.
Yeah.
His passion speaks.
Well, I live by a couple different mottos. One is relationship over agenda, and another one is souls over sales. And I think it's one of the reasons why God is giving me favor and giving me a platform and a position to influence people and have access to, a lot of things that even artists that have been doing music for years don't have access to. A lot of people don't know that when I first moved to Atlanta, I was pushing with music. I was like, music, let's get it out. Let's get all the records, and which is good. But there was a moment of obedience when I felt like God told me to lay down my music. And I felt like he told me to spend more time seeking him in prayer and just having more intimate relationship with him. And I did that out of obedience. And it was actually out of that season that I met Justin's mother. And, I was just being obedient. And the next thing you know, this young man, blew up. And next thing you know, I'm in the industry. And one of the first things that I felt like God spoke to me the first day I was on the road with him, which was at the Grammys in 2010. I felt like God spoke to me, and I was like, God, this is so crazy. Like, I've been wanting to get in this position my whole music career. And you just put me here without even using music. And I felt like God said to me, I just wanted to show you that I could get you here without using your gift. That if you seek first my kingdom and my righteousness, all these other things will be added. And I think a lot of times, coming from the world where I come from, music is about building your own kingdom. But I felt like when I started building a relationship with God, he started showing me, no, music is just a tool. Just like whatever your vocation is, it's a tool that God can use. And as we understand what it really means to build his kingdom, which is really has to do with people, serving people, glorifying him, then I think God can use whatever tool. But the fact that God showed me, I don't even have to use it, Brandon, to get you where I want you to get to. If you just be obedient, I will put you in that position. And I've been so fortunate and so grateful that God has allowed that to be something that has been a part of my story, because it's something that I use now when I meet young people that are like, hey, I want to do music and I want to do sales. And I'm like, that will come. But I was like, that gift that you now gives you the power and the influence to affect your community around you. And if you can affect your community around you right now, you're going to have influence with people. And however you choose to use that, so be it. But on the other side of that, when you understand the environment and the culture and the community, the people around you, now you can actually write music that has not just gifting into it, that not just sells music, but you can actually write music and create things of that light that can really impact the lives of people. And I've just found like I will take one song that impacts the life of a person, like how I was impacted by the gospel, over 1 million sales all day.
It's purpose.
If I can say, Brandon, you don't need Kevin Palau to preach. You could do it all yourself.
I was gonna say,
Like talk about a motivational speaker and getting people pumped up. Let me tell you.
Oh, man. Well, thank you, man. Yeah, I get that a lot. My kids are like, Dad, you're a preacher. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's in my bloodline. My dad's a preacher, you know what I mean? And I think I get some of that from him. But yeah, I'm passionate about these things that I'm sharing because they're my life and because I actually see it in the face of so many young people that we're getting an opportunity to, touch. I get to see this happen in their lives and I get to see their life transform in front of me, and they're amazing artists. And so I do believe that it's not one or the other. It's not souls or sales. It's souls over sales. And I do believe that there is a generation of people that are going to catch the heart of what I'm sharing right now, and some of that are already walking in that. And I do believe that this music has to come to the forefront. I believe that the trend is shifting and that there is so much going on in the world that people need more substance. We need more substance in everything that we're creating. And so for me, it's just real because I'm watching it impact me and I'm watching it impact my family and the people around me. So I'm like, God, if you can do that, let's do it. Do it for as many people as possible. Do it for an entire generation. Like, I'm a dreamer. Sure. Don't get me started on here, man. Between preaching and dreaming, man, I see a revolution coming, man.
Okay, so let's
it's happening.
Let's calm down a bit. Let's calm down. Okay, we're getting carried away. No, I'm just kidding. Tell us what is in store musically for you now. I mean, obviously you went to the Malawi trip, and it resulted in a song called Freedom. What do you see happening now as far as the music side of your career?
Yeah. Man, I've literally been on this journey for over now, 14 years plus, and I've actually created so much music, and I always felt like, I was on these musical journeys, and I would have projects and songs out, and I would just be waiting for opportunity to release them, and God would bring people like Justin in my life, and I felt like I was faced with a huge, question in those seasons. Do I pursue music and try to make my thing go, or do I prioritize the relationships and discipleship? And I've just prioritized that, and it's been super rewarding. But I've also had the question in the back of my head, God, what about this music you've given me? And in the last few years, I felt super hopeful that some of the music that I've created and some of the music that I'm looking forward to creating it's the time for it. And so Justin released the album called Freedom a few years ago, and I was featured on that. And that kind of, I think, brought some awareness to who I was musically. And then I've partnered with 2 labels, one most recently, Pure Mosaic, and I just did a single deal with them, and we're in talks about doing more musical projects. But I have songs that are ready to go, and I'm so excited about these songs. They're just precious, and I'm creating music in all different types of genres. And so I actually have a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to sharing to the public. And y'all could just be praying with me, man. It's been such a hard journey for me musically, a lot of opposition, a lot of setbacks, and then a lot of things that have just been, like I said, choices that I've just chose to prioritize. My family chose to prioritize other relationships. But I do believe that this is the time for me to release, my music, my story. I really believe that. And so I'm just praying every day that all the, right doors would open up, and that, I would get an opportunity to share what God has put in my heart.
Well, maybe Justin,
definitely more.
Maybe Justin will want to collaborate with you.
Well, we'll see, man. I mean, I think that
tables are
is
turned.
Wow. Yeah. I believe God is working, and I believe God is moving. And we actually right now we have some really big things that we're working on. We actually have a partnership, and they have agreed for us to host our first festival. So I'm getting an opportunity to be a co-owner of a festival where we actually are going to be releasing our music. So it's going to be a Music with a Mission festival. And I'm super excited about that. God works in mysterious ways. And, typically you're an artist and you have all these songs out, and then you get your own stadium event or tour. And God kind of did it backwards for me. He gave me my own stadium festival event, and we get an opportunity to book artists, and we're getting an opportunity to work with some amazing nonprofit organizations. And so, I think the music thing is one thing for me, but I wrote a business plan when I came out of college about what I wanted to see my music do. And the reality of it is, without having all the sales and all the notoriety, I'm getting to live out the purpose and the mission. And so for me, if I never become famous, if the music never goes beyond that, but I get to continue to live in mission and live in purpose and make a difference, I'm thankful. I'm grateful. And if the music tends to do anything more than that, then, to God be the glory.
So be it. Yeah, sure.
But I say that to say I appreciate you guys sharing the comments. I appreciate you guys, having me on to talk about the music, because I feel like it's something I'm passionate about. It's something that I love doing. I would do it even if I wasn't getting paid or anything to do it. But I also believe that, God has given me a gifting, and that the words that I'm really trying to speak through these songs, I'm really praying that there would be a generation that would grab a hold to it, and that there would be language for another young person that is dreaming and has a gift, and, wants God to be at the center, or doesn't know God. I'm just hoping that it literally, as Tupac said, he said, man, if it just touches one person, that person could be the person that reaches a million. So for me, I'm just grateful to be able to use it as a gift.
When this festival comes down, can you let us know about it?
I will, man. I appreciate you guys' time, man. This was such a fun conversation, and you guys definitely will be, on my list to let you guys know. We are literally in the planning stages of it now, and hopefully we'll be launching. We'll be broadcasting our first date. So yeah, man, however we can stay connected, and we need all the help that we can get. So
that's
absolutely
awesome. That's awesome. Brandon, thank you so much for hanging with us. Really appreciate your time, and really enjoyed this conversation. Very inspirational, if I can say. Man, people that don't listen to this are crazy.
Yeah, that's
I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate the honor just to be on you guys' platform.
Thanks, Brandon. Really appreciate your time. Take care.
You too.
What an inspirational conversation with Brandon, huh?
If I could describe it in one word, wow.
I love getting the chance to speak with people that have so much more inside of them, more than meets the eye.
Sure.
It
more
was
their
a pleasant
songs.
surprise.
Yeah, more than just in the songs and the lyrics and stuff. I mean, there's so much meat and stuff behind all of that. And so when
absolutely.
And then you listen to the song and it's just like, well, there's a quick little summary, just a quick little taste of what he's all about. But it's very, very quick because there's so much more. Like everything from his life story to what he's done and the crusades that he's been part of, and then being impacted personally by his trip to Malawi and how that has kind of shifted things. And the whole Justin Bieber thing is just kind of a small little component, small little component of the whole thing, And so having said that, we still would welcome Justin to come on the podcast at any time. Just throwing that out there once again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Listen, before we go, we got to hear from Meg Emmons. She's got some artist advice for us this week.
I would say don't lose the joy in your journey. Don't measure yourself against someone else. Just make sure you're being faithful to what God has called you to do. And that's really how you keep the joy, honestly. It's when you see someone else's highlight reel and you're thinking of your hardships that you can quickly think, what do I need to do to hustle and prove myself? If you are living to prove yourself, it's like you're defeating yourself every step of the way. If you stay right with God and remember that He approves of you already, then I think we step forward with the right heart attitude. And we want to enjoy the journey, because if you're just waiting for those couple highlight moments of your life, I think I want to be nominated for something, I want to finally get that big cut, those are going to come so few and far between. And if you're just waiting for those to be happy, you're missing the joy you can have every day. So be grateful that you can hear God and enjoy the everyday part of that fellowship that we were created for. And then, yes, everything else becomes icing on the cake. Even though we're trying to improve all the time, be the best we can be, don't lose the fundamental, simple joy of knowing Jesus and that being the overflow into all of your gifts.
And you know what? Just hearing Meg remind us of that very simple fact, it just warms my heart.
Yeah, it's interesting. She uses the term highlight reel, and so it's so easy on social media to get sucked into someone else's world and see the best part of their lives, but we don't know and see half the stuff that happens behind the scenes, all the bad moments and all the sad moments that happen. We just see the best, and so it's interesting how she worded all that, and at the same time very difficult because of all of that, because of that pressure to stay focused on what's really important. So yeah, good words from Meg.
Isn't she like the epitome of songwriter?
Yeah.
Even in what she shared, it was so poetic.
Yeah. I could write a song about that.
I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was great. Great conversation with Brandon Love, and appreciated Meg stopping by as well. And that is it for this week. We are out of time. Thanks for tuning in, and check us out next week. A brand new episode dropping of Between the Grooves.
Thanks for listening to Faith Strong Today's Between the Grooves podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider sharing it with your friends, rating our podcast, or giving us some love on your socials to your amazing friends and followers will only help us reach more people. We'd also love to hear from you and share your feedback in an upcoming episode. Send your video or written message to Aisha and James on Facebook and Twitter @Between Grooves, or email us anytime, hello@faithstrongtoday.com.